Good morning. Good morning. Well, today will be a little difficult, possibly. Evil. What is it? Where did it come from? Why is it in the world? This is not an easy question. The question of evil is probably the most popular and the most difficult question that is continually thrown into the face of Christians and Christianity. I've very seldom seen anyone respond to it correctly. Because the truth is, this question really should be presented back to the world, not to us. We really do have a lot of answers for the issue of evil. Now, the world may not accept those answers, but we do have a lot of answers for this question of evil. The world does not. In fact, when you press that question back upon the world, they come up empty. I want us to look at the answers that we get from both Christians and non-Christians. In terms of this question, what is evil?
What is evil? That's kind of a harder thing to answer.
Evil, it's very bad point, so I prefer to not speak about this.
What is evil?
That's creepy.
All right, what is evil?
Evil to me is a bad feeling. It's doing something intentionally bad and feeling good about it.
Evil represents all is bad in world.
I think that wherever there's good, there has to be evil.
A hungry child is evil. Not the child, but the fact he has to go to bed hungry.
I believe evil is just people that don't know right from wrong, and they just choose to be evil.
Hitler wanted an Aryan race. That is not good, because in the process you have to wipe out everyone else.
Genocides or mass killings we've seen, World War II under Hitler and Stalin, Saddam Hussein, those are all evil.
There's no way that a world is just going to be full of good.
Well, the simple answer to me, evil is sin.
We're all born into sin, so our propensity for evil is just natural.
Evil's here because it's supposed to be. It's part of the plan at the moment.
Without the effect of God in our lives and the effect of balance and accountability, we will then pursue that which is natural to our nature.
It wasn't the original plan, but it is now.
Evil is just anything that's not seen by good by other people.
In Taoism, the idea exists that all simply is. Good and evil both exist.
No matter what, it has to be bad to have good, or else there wouldn't be no good.
People look at good and the right and the narrow path as like hard and boring and not worth it.
Satan became aware of himself and he was able to know right and wrong. He chose to do wrong.
I think the devil is very smart and that he's made evil exciting.
If you go to a movie and you watch the good guy, he's usually pretty boring.
The dark side and the mysterious stuff, it catches people.
You watch the evil guy, he's very exciting. So what would life be without evil?
Some interesting answers to a very difficult question. Everyone acknowledges that evil exists. Flash said it was creepy. Some people said it's necessary. The question of evil is not an easy one, and I don't mean to trivialize it from the standpoint of the answers that we have, because in reality, the ultimate origin of evil is somewhat puzzling for us. But in reality, you and I have been given that universal answer to the question of why there is evil in the world and what is evil. Yesterday we talked about the issue associated with what happens when someone cuts themselves off from God, who gives us the ultimate answers to these questions. And in the end, you're left with a very difficult position in how to not only answer the question, why is there evil in the world, but even the more fundamental question, what is evil at all? We're going to head out west today. And it may seem a little confusing to you as why we're talking about evil when we're going to now begin to lay this very critical foundation. And the foundation is anthropology, asking the question, attempting to answer the question, who is man? These two foundations, the one that we're going to see today and the one we'll look at the next time we take a tour, form what we call primary doctrine. Now, don't let the word doctrine scare you. Doctrine simply is teaching. These two together, the answers to the question, who is man and who is God, form the fundamental foundation of not only our worldview, but everyone's worldview. If you can begin to understand how an individual or a culture answers these two questions, you'll have a pretty good sense of where the rest of their worldview is headed. One of the great early preachers, Jonathan Edwards, said, of all kinds of knowledge that we can ever obtain, the knowledge of God and the knowledge of ourselves are the most important. And I agree. They form the fundamental foundation here of our worldview. And so, we're going to ask this question, who is man? Who am I? Who are you? Who is this bipedal creature who roams the face of the earth, who has this sense of self-awareness, and he has deep creativity? He has a moral conscience, and yet he is capable of some of the most unspeakable evils. And he has this deep hunger for relationships, and yet we find him to be very much alone, even when he is massed into urban areas of millions and millions of people. Who is this man? What is he? Grant, I'm going to ask you to read Galatians chapter 5, and I'm going to put it up here on the board for you, and I want you to read it for us.
So I say, live by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of your sinful nature. For the sinful nature desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the sinful nature. They are in conflict with each other, so that you do not do what you want.
Okay, what are the two elements in this passage?
The sinful nature.
Sinful nature.
And the Spirit.
And the Spirit. And what is the passage saying about these two things?
They're in conflict with each other.
They're in conflict with each other. What does that remind you of?
The cosmic battle.
Our cosmic battle. That's exactly right. The desires of the sinful nature as opposed to what, Grant?
The Spirit.
The Spirit. The desires of the Spirit? It doesn't say that, but it's implied. I say, live by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the sinful nature. The sinful nature desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit desires what is contrary to the sinful nature. They are in conflict with each other so that you do not do what you want. Is that true? Do you believe that verse? Grant?
I believe we often have conflict.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you do what you do not want to do?
Not most of the time, probably.
What do you do most of the time?
I do what I want to do.
So is this verse out of touch with reality?
No, because we established that this is reality, that he is reality.
Yeah, so what are we saying here? If you think that you do what you really want to do, what does it mean when it says you do not do what you want? The answers to the question of who is man are not simple. But what we're going to do, remember last time we were talking about this issue of cricket and how the elemental principles of the game of cricket to me just seemed crazy until someone described to me the universal truth about cricket. The same is true with man. If we do not understand how God has created man and the result of what has occurred in the state of man today, then we will not understand not only the answer to the question, who is man, but understand what the Scripture is talking about when it talks about this conflict within us. This is this battle, and it is a deep battle between the truth and lies regarding who is man. And I would submit to you that we're going to find that it is in this tour today that we're going to uncover one of the most pernicious lies that has ever been foisted upon man. And we're going to refer back to this. On all of our tours from now on, we're going to refer back to this fundamental lie that we're going to look at today, answering the question, who is man? So we're just going to simply look at three aspects of man together. His essence, who is he? The essence of man, his moral state, and what his need is. Now, before we can begin to understand who man is, we have to understand who man is from the standpoint of God's perspective of man. And I think the only way that you can do that properly is to look at what I will call the states of man. Now, I don't want you to be confused by that. Actually, when we're talking about the states of man, that's to some extent an engineering term, computer engineering or whatever. You may refer to it now as modes. You may be familiar with this because often a digital watch will have on it a little button, and written by it said modes, and you can change the mode of your watch. If you want to change the time of your watch, you have to put it in the change time state mode. Now, that's exactly what we're going to look at when we look at the states of man. Man has gone through various states. Now, what was the event that brought about the first state of man?
Creation.
Creation. So, in the beginning, man was created, and would you mind if I just label it innocent? He was in the garden, and we'll call him innocent. State one, as a result of creation. And when we look at creation, we learn some things about what God said about man. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. So in this state, from the very beginning, answering the question, who is man, we understand that from the start, man was created in the image of God. Now, did anything change that? Did anything change the mode, the state?
Sin.
Sin? What was the event?
Eating of the apple.
Disobedience.
The fall. The fall changed man and changed the state of man from a state of innocence now to another state. We'll call it fallen. Romans 5:12, sin entered the world, and through one man, and death through sin, and in this way death came to all men because all sinned. Genesis 6:5, the Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. Boy, that's not a very good description, is it, of the state of man? Man in this state was indeed fallen. Something had happened to him. He was no longer as he was in the beginning, but now he has changed states. He's in a different mode. Could he go back? No. This watch is a worthless watch. You know why? Because this watch is stuck in the change time mode. Not much different than what we find now with this state. Man didn't have any way to get back there. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. My goodness. What a terrible state. These are the adjectives that the Scripture uses now to refer to the state of man. Evil, dead, blind, deaf, lost, rebellious, without hope, haters of God, desperately wicked, children of the devil. That is why Charles Spurgeon said, "You cannot slander human nature. It is worse than words can paint it." Now, in this mode, not able to go back, there are two state changes that can occur in man at this point. What might they be? One is
repentance,
leading to a new state that we'll talk about in just a minute. So that's one change. What's the other change that can occur?
You die.
Die. Death. There is a state change that can occur here. And if man in this state, if man is in this state and he transitions to this state, what do we call that?
Hell.
It's tough to even say the word, is it not? Hell. It's kind of things you don't really want to think about. Revelation chapter 20 says, if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. Hebrews 9, man is destined to die once and after that to face judgment. If man dies in this state, if he is in this mode and he dies, that is the state that he goes to. My guess is, folks, if we really believe this and we understood what this meant, our efforts of evangelism might be a little different. But there is another state change that can